Hey, Mike. Well, we got something new here, sponsorship with probably our favorite software, and according to a recent survey, 30% of evangelical churchgoers want more in-depth teaching like we do here at the Naked Bible Podcast. And if you want to go deeper, and there's nothing better than we trust than Logos, is the Bible study platform, period.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, Logos, having worked there a long time, I know Logos fuses powerful technology with biblical resources. I mean, you can access Bibles and search tools, commentaries, seminary-level courses now with mobile ed, and even audiobooks right on your phone, tablet, or desktop.
Yeah, and they have over 200,000 digital books. It's crazy. I mean, the power, the technology, and the search, and all the cross-references. I honestly don't know how you could go to the depth that you can get studying the Bible if you don't use Logos software.
Well, I think that's the point. You can't. There's no other platform like it. I can remember when I worked there when we crossed 100,000 resources, but now it's double, since I've even been there. So what the difference is that Logos editions of books have been turbocharged with powerful data that connect them with the rest of your library. So everything in the library is completely interconnected. This is not like an ebook or a Kindle book or a PDF or anything like that. It's so far beyond that people don't really realize it until they've actually gotten into it. So whether you're comparing Bible translations or tackling tough topics, studying deep theological issues, Logos is going to have you covered no matter what. And then that's before you even get to original language resources. And one of the crucial tools in Logos are the reverse interlinears, where you don't even have to know Greek and Hebrew to run searches in Greek and Hebrew, tap into the original languages. And Logos will even help you pronounce the words.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, if you're preparing a sermon or a Bible study, I don't know how you don't use Logos to get your study done.
Yeah, I use it literally. I use it every day. I use it hours every day. No exaggeration. I use Logos every day. I'm very familiar with it. I mean, people know that. And there's just nothing like it on the planet.
I mean, if you're serious about Bible study, there's no other software tool out there that will get you as deeper than Logos.
Yep, and I'm asked all the time in email about Bible study tools. And, having been on the podcast for all these years, how many times have you heard me say you need to invest in resources? If you're serious about Bible study, you must invest in resources and tools. And this is it. And I get asked all the time, this question, my answer is always the same. You need to get Logos. And, people sometimes balk at, the affordability question because Logos packages, there's so much in them and they can be expensive. But now Logos is more than affordable. You can get started for just $49. And that's always what I tell people. Get into the platform low and then spend extra money on the books and resources that you want. And now is the perfect time to do that. Just $49.
Yes, and if you want to support the Naked Bible Podcast and what we do here, please go get the Logos software now at logos.com/nakedbible. For $49, get started. And like Mike said, you can build up your library over time, but there's no better time than now to support our show and Logos by going to logos.com/nakedbible. For $49, you can get started right now, Mike. So we encourage all of our listeners, go do it, and you'll be thankful that you did.
Yep, absolutely.
You're listening to the Naked Bible Podcast. To support this podcast, visit nakedbiblepodcast.com and click on the support link in the upper right-hand corner. If you're new to the podcast and Dr. Heiser's approach to the Bible, click on New Start Here at nakedbiblepodcast.com.
Welcome to the Naked Bible Podcast, episode 433, the Epistle of Jude, part 2. I'm the layman, Trey Strickland, and he's the scholar, Dr. Michael Heiser. Hey, Mike. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah.
anticipating the new season, such as it is, 2 episodes of Stranger Things.
Yeah. It came out last weekend, so by the time this show airs, we will probably both have watched it. So I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it's good. So I liked it.
Yeah, I don't know. It might take us a while to get to it, but who knows? Just depends on what the kids want to do.
Yeah, it's strange having like Halloween during 4th of July. That's a crazy mixed emotion there.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
It's fun. Not a whole lot of fireworks going on here for the 4th of July. We hope everybody that's in America had a good 4th of July. We had big wildfires, Mike, and everything burned around us, so I don't think we're really going to do fireworks this year. Yeah, Texas has been on fire for a little bit. Fortunately, we got the fires out, but I had ash raining down in my backyard, so it was too close for comfort, for sure. But
wow,
yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Well, Mike, I got an email for one of our listeners, Mark and his wife Kim. He emailed me and said they finally caught up to all of the episodes, and it only took them 4 years. I want to welcome them to the present. Yeah, I enjoyed those emails.
Is there some kind of medal for that?
I know, and they're probably sad because I can only imagine if you're binging all this good stuff and then you catch up and you got to wait every week for an episode to come out. That's pretty rough. I know how it is when we binge, Stranger Things or anything. You want to watch them all now, so it's not as much fun.
Yeah, that's true.
But
that's
I bet
true.
you could go back and listen to them again, I guess. There's several of them that are worthy.
Yeah, you can pick them out, yeah.
All right, Mike. Well, here we are in Jude, part 2. I'm excited about this one because didn't you mention you're going to have some more Unseen Realm content in this particular episode? And
yep, we're going to go a little bit beyond Unseen Realm in this episode. So we're going to focus on Jude 4 and 5, those 2 verses. We got into verse 4 a little bit on the previous episode in the characterization of the false teachers, but we'll hit a little bit more. There's one thing I sort of saved, just for this week, and then go on into verse 5. But let's just start by reading verse 4, and then when we get to verse 5, then that'll be evident. So Jude 4 says, I might as well read verses 3 and 4 just so to flavor the context here. Beloved, although I was very eager to write to you about our common salvation, I found it necessary to write appealing to you to contend for the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints. For certain people have crept in unnoticed, who long ago were designated for this condemnation, ungodly people who pervert the grace of our God into sensuality and deny our only Master and Lord Jesus Christ. On the part of verse 4 that I reserved for today, for this episode, is this line, long ago were designated for this condemnation. This is ESV, so what ESV translates as were designated is a perfect passive participle of prographo, which, more literally, if we were going to be real literalistic about this translation, it would read, certain people have crept in unnoticed who had or have been written about long ago for this condemnation. So the question is this some kind of note about predestination, or is it a prophetic prediction, or is it more or less just Jude saying, hey, these people are going to reap what they sow? I think it's certainly right to say that the predestination idea is not self-evident in this. This is not, prographo is not the normal verb choice for predestination, like in certain passages in Romans. So it's not self-evident at all. The verb choice seems to indicate he's thinking about a type of people that his audience have been forewarned about. And so that would raise the question of, well, where were they forewarned? I'm going to quote again from Gene Green's commentary on Jude, one of the commentaries on Jude that I like. And he writes, Jude's use of prographo, to write in advance, appears to point to the way their doom was prophetically predicted. And he cross-references Romans 15:4 here for the similar use of the verb. This verb, however, is not commonly employed in the context of predictive prophecy, but in the literature of the era, it repeatedly arises in legal contexts. The verb is attached to the concept of making official decrees, either in marriage contracts, deeds of sale, or public notes. The substantives programma and prographe are the official decrees or notices themselves. And then he cites LSJ, which is the Liddell Scott lexicon, and BDAG, which is the Bauer, Docker, Arndt, and Gingrich lexicon, and Moulton and Milligan, that lexicon for the vocabulary of the Greek New Testament. So there's lots of examples of this in legal contexts. Back to Green, he says, Jude's emphasis is not simply that the doom of the heretics was predicted, but also that it was decreed and publicly announced. While the predictive sense is not absent entirely, his principal point concerns the official and public condemnation of the heretics. And that's the end of the quotation. I'm going to throw in another quote here from Herb Bateman's commentary, because he adds some important details to this. Herb writes, this descriptive clause has at least two baffling interpretive challenges. To begin with, Jude alludes to written material. That's the hoi progegraminoi, those who were written about, in that whole line, about these intruders. Furthermore, this material was written at some point in the past, and that's indicated by the Greek word palai, which typically means long ago. Was Jude speaking of direct prophecies written specifically about these certain people, or was he speaking of godless patterns of rebellious behavior traceable in written texts? Some commentators suggest Jude refers to books in heaven. And I'll just stop there. If you remember, back in the Naked Bible podcast history, we did a whole episode on the heavenly books, or the book of life, the heavenly tablets. And some of those, were just as Herb is describing here, about things done or condemnation for certain works. He references here examples in 1 Enoch 81, 1 Enoch 89, 1 Enoch 104, 1 Enoch 106, Revelation 20:12, Jubilees 5:13, so on and so forth. So then he continues to write, others propose Jude references godless people in other New Testament texts. Paul, for instance, predicts that, quote, fierce wolves will come in among you, even from among your own group, unquote. And that's 1 Timothy 4:1-3, but you could throw in 2 Timothy 3:13 and a host of other references that he has here. You'll also get this in early patristics, early church fathers like Ignatius and the Didache. This notion, again, of Jude referencing godless people that would arise from within. So Herb writes here, still others put forward the idea that Jude alludes to prophetic material in the Old Testament, specifically Isaiah 37:26 and Isaiah 48:5. Isaiah 37:26 says, have you not heard that I determined that long ago I planned from days of old what now I bring to pass, that you should make fortified cities crash into heaps of ruins? So, that's an allusion to, again, a prediction in the Old Testament about what happens with bad behavior. And the same thing is there for Isaiah 48:5, so similar idea. So Herb writes, Jude is not necessarily specifying a specific written text, but rather people who long ago were written about and thereby appear frequently in Jewish literature. For instance, Jude is about to call his readers to remember 3 different patterns of past rebellions and God's diverse judgments of them: the Exodus generation, angelic beings, and Gentile urban centers. That's in Jude 5-7, is where Herb is saying, Jude is going to get into some of these things from the Old Testament that were, again, typological. They showed patterns of behavior and what happens. Herb continues and says, second, Jude is also about to apply 3 other assorted patterns of rebellion by 3 men from the past to these dubious intruders and tell of God's forthcoming condemnation of their rebellion: Cain, Balaam, and Korah. That's Jude 11-13. Thus, Jude may merely employ a form of ancient typology as a means to point out the ungodly characteristics of these quote-unquote certain people. Yet it seems very likely Jude has a particular text in mind. For example, 1 Enoch 1:9, because he alludes to it in Jude 14-15. Thus, it would appear that Jude has both a written source and specific